What's up, everybody, and welcome to our first episode of The Fifth Row. We're just a couple normal guys in the Pacific Northwest who've been friends for a long time. I'm Nick Hewitt, my co-host is William Cornell, and he's actually going to be our first guest on the show today. So Will is the creator of the web series called Rain City Redemption, and for fans of his, he's never actually told the whole story of how the whole series came to be, and where his idea came from, how the name came about, and where it's really taken him. So we thought it would be a great idea for the first podcast to sit down and really give you guys the full story and sort of an inside look on how the whole thing really came to be. Not only that, but just personally, it's a great story and it's really inspirational for anybody out there who's just trying to do their own thing and really has aspirations of doing something that maybe nobody necessarily expects from them. So please give a big welcome to my guy, William Cornell. He's going to be our first guest. And here it is, The Fifth Row Show.
We are live.
Welcome to another episode of The Fifth Row Show. I'm Nick. This is Will. And as always, our producer over there in the corner is D. Mikey.
Hello.
I wonder if he'll say something today, dude.
I hope so.
Are you going to join the conversation today, or?
We'll see.
That's a no.
Well, I think actually how we recorded these chronologically, this isn't the first episode that we've recorded, but this I think is going to be the first episode that we release. So just a quick rundown of what we're going to do. I have Will Cornell here, who is the co-founder of the podcast and also the creator of Rain City Redemption, the series online. And he's never really told the full story of how the whole thing got started, start to finish. So we thought it would be cool to give you guys a little exclusive as a first episode to our podcast. So we're just going to give kind of a quick, almost not super long interview and just go through the story and see where he's at today and what he's doing. So what's up, man? It's been a while since I've seen you.
Yeah, like a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
I hate that you're making me talk on my own show, but hey, here we are. You got 4 hours to talk about Rain City Redemption, but it is a long story, and I haven't actually told it in its entirety yet, so it's a good opportunity to do it, I guess.
Yeah, if there was ever a time, I feel like now would be the time, right? We're starting a podcast, so might as well get the story out there, man. So let's just start at the beginning. You grew up here in the Pacific Northwest, right? You grew up in Seattle?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I was actually born and raised in Ballard, then I moved over to the east side when I was about 9 or so. But yeah, it's been Seattle my whole life for the most part.
Yeah, and we actually ended up going to the same high school. That's kind of how we know each other. And so when did because I know in high school you were a big Seahawks fan and a big Oregon fan. When did those two fandoms start?
Actually, before those two, I was a lightweight Vikings fan just because my grandparents were from Minnesota. Grew up watching Dante Culpepper, Randy Moss, absolute GOAT, but different conversation. But I didn't really understand the game, right? I was so young that I didn't know how football worked. I started watching Oregon right around 2002, 2003-ish, the Joey Harrington era. And then 2004 for the Seahawks, kind of as Matt Hasselbeck's taking the reins in Seattle. My first ever year as a Seahawks fan was the 2003 season. Or was the 2004 season, don't know. But it was when they played the Packers in the playoffs. Al Harris had the pick six on Hasselbeck in overtime. We want the ball, we're going to score. Everybody knows what I'm talking about that's a Seahawks fan. But yeah, the misery started early, basically.
And so you became an Oregon fan around you became an Oregon fan because your dad was like going on business trips. Right?
Yeah. My dad, for whatever reason, would drive to San Francisco from Seattle on business trips. No idea why I did it, but he would stop in Eugene on the way down, and I guess he had friends down there that he'd visit, and so he'd always come back up to Seattle with Oregon gear, and we ate it up. And then, right around the time I'm starting to figure out the game of football as a fan, their jerseys were the best. Joey Harrington was, pimp. So
right,
that's kind of how it worked.
Plus, it was the Mighty Ducks. You were a kid. They used to run with that whole marketing scheme, right, back then.
Yeah. The Fighting Duck, that was before Disney took that away from them.
Yeah.
But it was like, just classic logo. As a kid, it was awesome. A lot of Huskies fans up here, that's what everyone did. And I don't know if I was like, a hipster before my time, but I kind of wanted to do something different, and Oregon it was. Still paying for it today.
Literally.
Yeah.
So you carried that into high school years, because I know in high school, like I said, you were a huge Oregon fan even then. And in high school, had you already decided I'm going to Oregon, or were you looking at other schools?
I really only applied to two schools. Well, I only did apply to two schools. It was Arizona and Oregon. I got into Arizona right away. Oregon, I was Yeah, I also wanted to play lacrosse, so that was part of the equation. I wanted to go to a school I could play lacrosse at. Arizona said they'd have me. I got in right away. Oregon, there was a huge influx of students that were applying to Oregon that year, so I was on a bubble, so to speak, and I was a late acceptance. Whatever, I don't even know what you say, but yeah, I was basically accepted late into Oregon. But as soon as I got the letter, yeah, it was a done deal.
Right,
nothing to think about.
Right.
Yep.
And so you get out of high school and you go to Oregon. What was your first year like?
I was one of the few that did not handle college well the first year.
Oh, was one of the few?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, the second quarter in Eugene, I didn't see the same friends. There were a lot of people went back home after their first quarter, but I actually survived and made it through somehow, some way. But yeah, I was 18 years old. It was the first time I'd been out from underneath my parents' roof, and it was not handled well. No, it was a lot of, Friday through Sunday, not a lot of Monday through Friday.
Right. That's a funny way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people, a lot of kids our age I went through that too. But so you ultimately just, because I've known you for so long, I do remember the story, but you did end up getting kicked out of Oregon, right?
I did. Yeah. It was my freshman year was so bad that I actually went on academic probation and had to leave the school.
Right.
And partially it was definitely my own fault. I'm more responsible for my own actions, but I was also studying something I wasn't really passionate about. I hadn't really figured out what I wanted to do. So to me, I just didn't see the point at that moment in my life. And, fortunately I was able to spend a year at community college in Eugene and work my way back into Oregon. And the second time I got in, I don't think there was another quarter went by that I didn't have under a 3.5. I was studying something that I was passionate about. So yeah, it was like the second try, in other words.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring that up, that after you figured out what you wanted to do, you automatically became a good student, right? Because you're interested in what you're studying. So it just comes naturally that you do well at something that you're interested in, right? Because you're putting in the effort. And I'm always reminded when people talk about that I don't even remember who said it, but somebody was talking about how when they were younger, that everybody always told them to work hard at something, but he never knew what to work hard at. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people are willing to work hard, but they don't even know where to put that energy, right? It's so hard to find whatever it is that you're passionate about or what you're willing to put energy towards. So it's lucky that you found it so early, right?
Yeah. And another part of it was just finishing what I started, man. I took a look around and I made a decision, do I want to drop out of school forever and, start working and start following some other endeavors? Or should I go back and finish what I started? And I made the decision to go back, and I'm really happy I did.
Yeah. And I think that, not to get too introspective about this, but I think that it's such an important time in your life, and so many people are faced with that decision, and so many people choose the opposite route. Because I remember around that time, and in high school too, you were making music, and you still continue to be involved in music in some capacity. But back then you were really going for it. You were putting on shows, you were producing music with a mutual friend of ours in high school. Did you carry that on to college? And was that kind of the fork in the road to where you were deciding to maybe go towards a music career or go back to college?
Yeah, no, that was absolutely part of the fork in the road. Like you said, I'd been making music through high school, as you were aware. I think you were around for a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I carried it through college, and at the time I was considering pursuing music full time.
But you ultimately decided to go back to school, right? Was there a specific moment that really made you realize that I need to go back to school? I can't do this shit.
Actually, it was working in Alaska for a summer. After my freshman year at Oregon, I went up to work in Alaska for a summer, and I don't want to sound shitty about it, but I was working with a lot of grown men making minimum wage, and it's not to knock any of them, but I kind of took a look around and said, man, I'm going to finish and get my college education because I don't want to be like this. And again, it's not any disrespect or knock on them. It was just I kind of saw where I wanted my life to go, more specifically where I didn't want to see it go. And that was a huge motivation to go back.
I think that it's so tough to see. What's the phrase? It's so tough to see the forest through the trees sometimes. And it's so hard to see the end goal. And I had a lot of people when I was younger always tell me, you need to get out of this shit. And it took me a long time to really realize what they meant by that. But when you do actually realize that you need to take a different path and you can't always try to take, I won't even say the easy path, but maybe not the correct path, it's just harder. You might as well just take the fucking what seems hard right now, but is ultimately better for you in the long run. And take our advice that we're casually, subtly giving out. If I could tell anybody anything, it would be to do that, would be to buckle down and maybe not go to school, but make the right choice that you really know is the right choice, right? Because in the back of your head, I'm sure you knew that music wasn't really it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you look at the numbers and you're thinking, okay, it's going to be really, really hard to start making money doing music, right? And I was a nobody, like still am, right? I mean, it was going to be really hard for me to break through. I mean, for a lot of artists, it takes sometimes decades to start actually profiting and living off of music. So I took a look at that and said, there's still time to make music, even after I graduate, right? It's not like I'm choosing one or the other. I can get this piece of paper that says I'm a college graduate, and then when I'm done with that, if I still want to do music, then I'll do it.
Right.
There's enough time in the day, ultimately.
And that was the correct decision. In hindsight, now I'm sure back then it was also the correct decision, but in hindsight, I'm sure, like you said, you're glad that you did that.
Totally.
So you get kicked out of Oregon, and then you go back to community college, or what was the next step after you get kicked out and you decide that you're going to continue your college education?
I went to community college as kind of an interim play, almost like a purgatory of sorts. I was kind of just like weighing my options in many ways. But then I decided to get back to Oregon, and I was only there for about a year.
At the community college?
Yeah, I was only there for a year. Yeah.
And then you got right back into Oregon?
Yeah.
And so
they help you get back in. It's not like, and plus they like the out-of-state tuition.
Yeah.
All right, let's get this guy back on the hook. You know, I mean, sure, they had no problem letting me back in, but they want to see that you've, kind of matured and you're taking it seriously. And yeah, it was a simple application process, and I got right back in.
Right. Well, that's awesome that they have that, and it's awesome that you actually took the steps to do it, because a lot of people, I'm sure, would just get halfway through and just not do it, right? Not follow through, like you said.
Right.
So when you eventually get back into Oregon, what is it like? Your attitude has changed. Do you think that bled over a little bit into your personal relationships or how you handled things outside of school too?
Yeah, I mean, I was a lot more responsible the second time around. I mean, once you screw up the first time, you definitely can't screw up the second time, right? Because now all this money's been spent on your education that you're not even getting credits for, right? Mm-hmm. And I just buckled down. I was still doing the same stuff, just on a lesser degree, right? I was still making music, but I was much more responsible with my education, for sure.
Right, and it sounds like since the attitude changed. Did you apply that to music too? Because I know the whole time you were in high school, you were kind of recording with the same person, and then you go to college, and assumingly that person isn't there anymore, right? Because you're living in different states. So were you looking for new people to make music with and attacking it with this new, I don't know, renewed set or new outlook on how you attack things or how you approach things?
Yeah, dude, I was dying to work with anybody. Because, of course, once I left high school, I wasn't making music with the same people. I was looking for someone in Eugene I could work with, and I was trying to branch out like all the time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was desperate. I was at a stage where I was telling myself, dude, just find somebody. Find someone to go over this music. I was producing at the time. I was rapping in high school, but obviously that changed. That was not for me, but hey, I gave it a shot. But ultimately, I got into production. And of course, if you're a producer and you're not going to be, putting bars over your own production, you're going to have to find someone to work with. Mm-hmm. It just requires multiple people, right? So ultimately, my junior year, I was hanging out with a buddy of mine. We were on YouTube, just kind of going through local music and just music in general, and we stumbled across this guy, C. Villain, who was this dude that lived down on Hilliard Street in Eugene. He was a fellow student. And he'd just come out with a music video called Man in a Raincoat. It was amazing. And I was making music like his. And so I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I got to find where this guy is. I got to hit this guy up. I can work with this guy. I'm making boom bap beats, the same stuff he's rapping over right now. So, long story short, I'm at a house party a couple weeks later. And coincidentally, this person that's there, she goes, yeah, we're going to go over to Cole's house. We're going to go over to Steve Villain's house. And I'm thinking, all right, this is an opportunity. So I went in with the intention that I was going to communicate with this guy, connect, and we're going to make music, right? Walk in, huge party on Hilliard Street, 14th and Hilliard. Man, shout out to the Hilliard Hideout. But walked in. This guy's performing on a pool table. It was a dope scene. And I basically, once he got off and was done with his show, I basically told him, look, man, I'm a producer. I live over on the other side of campus. Let's connect. And it was one of those, drunken connections that you think will never amount to anything. But long story short, we ended up working together. It took me months of hitting him up, and finally I broke through. He came over, loved what he heard, and yeah, we actually became really good friends in the whole process. Shout out to Cole, man. That's my guy.
And that I think that lends itself to what we were saying earlier, that you wouldn't take no for an answer. Essentially, you had decided that you were going to work with this person, and you decided this is what you were going to do. And as another guest of our podcast said, you should treat every relationship like it's the most important thing that you've done.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, you would laugh about it if you knew how many times I hit this guy up. I'm thinking like, what's the deal, man?
Yeah.
You know, like
you
how
can't
many-
return a text.
Like, how many times am I going to text this guy? You know, ask him like, dude, I got free production, and I have a studio of some sort, and we can start making music, tonight. And I hit this guy it was like 3 months, and I'm starting to think like, am I doing something wrong here? Am I doing too much? What's the deal? And like I said, yeah, he finally reached back out to me. We set up a time, went and picked him up from his house, and like it was pretty much a friendship from then on. And he's still a lifelong friend of mine. It was crazy how the whole thing panned out, but.
Yeah, and that is it's crazy how these little things in your life grow to ultimately shape who you are, shape a direction that your life goes in, right? So it sounds like Cole was pretty popular around the local scene, right? So did that lead to any connections for you in the local music scene?
Oh, dude, of course. Once I met Cole, a bunch of doors opened up. I was shaking hands with a bunch of new people new people that I could work with. So of course, start working with him. My boy Isaiah, Octos, go down the list. I was working with a handful of artists. So
you're forgetting my favorite.
Which?
The Professor by Day.
Yeah. So through Cole, I met Professor. It was Andre Suroy, Food Stamps, DJ Food Stamps. Yeah, he's a local DJ in Eugene.
Shout out to DJ Food Stamps. I've never met you, but that's the most amazing name I've ever heard in my life.
No, Andre's the man. He was like I said, he was a professor by day. He was the head of the Cinema Studies program at Oregon. But then you'd catch him playing Tribe Called Quest on vinyl. He was a vinyl DJ, and you'd go out to the bars downtown in Eugene. This guy's actually
a real
flip-flopping and putting out records onto a turntable. None of this, Serato shit nowadays, which me and Derek do. But I always respect a vinyl DJ, right? Anyways.
Yeah, anyway. That's funny. That's so funny, yeah. So you meet all these new people, right? And so did it open any opportunities for you in the local music scene or elsewhere, or where did it take you?
Well, we were doing shows all the time. And then it's funny, I was in relation to how Rain City came about. Andre was in charge of hiring. I think it was, he was involved with hiring the students to work in the Cinema Studies lab. So he was the head of the program, but then there was also this little section up in the top corner of the library where all the film students could go and work on their film, right? It was like about 20 computers loaded to the brim with programs and all the hardware you'd need to edit video.
Right, like a computer lab essentially with high-tech equipment.
Yeah. I'll just have to show you a picture of it. But it was like this small little section up in the library. And he was involved with the hiring process. And so
for the person that just watches the people?
Yes.
Okay.
The lab monitor. I mean, the job was, it was basically, you would go in and do homework and make sure people weren't eating and drinking in front of the computers. I mean, you'd be amazed at how many people suck at that job, though. I mean, we and Andre still laugh about it to this day.
How do you suck at that job?
You're asking the wrong guy. Yeah. But he had to fire a couple people. I mean, it was that bad.
Imagine you're bad at sitting down and doing nothing.
Yeah. I mean, dude, like I said, most of the time I was sitting there just doing homework, and I was a great employee. I mean, that's how easy it was. But
so you're into music production already, right? Mm. But had you done any video production up to this point?
No, none at all.
And that wasn't why you got the job at the Cinema Studies Lab, or it was? Or you were just looking for a job?
No, and I actually begged Andre for about a year and a half. Look, man, like you got to hire me. I was looking for extra money, man. I was in college. I was constantly living at any given time in Eugene. I was living off of about $20. If I had $100 in my bank account, it was huge, dude. I used to tell myself, man, if I could have $500 right now, no, things will never be the same. That's how broke I was. So I was looking, hey, dude, give me 8 hours a week. Give me 8 hours a month. I don't care. If I get a $200 paycheck, great. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Right. So you weren't thinking of this as some sort of way you could have access to these computers or anything like
that.
I
was just looking at it as an opportunity. I knew the guy that was in charge of hiring, so I'm like, hey, man, give me a damn job. Come on.
What years is 2016? No. Sorry, like 20.
This is 2012. This is the fall of 2012.
Right.
But we should backtrack a little bit though.
Right, because let's backtrack a little bit because let's see. Yeah, why did I say 2016? I don't know. 20.
It's been a long day.
Because
It
has been a long day. Let's backtrack to let's say 2011, right? Because the Seahawks are gearing up. Things are changing. The culture is changing in Seattle.
Yeah.
Things are different. Pete Carroll's here. Russell Wilson is coming along, right? Like things have changed. The atmosphere is different, and it's kind of funny. We've talked about this a little bit. The parallels that happened between you and the Seahawks with your career and how the video series went and how the Seahawks were going, because around the same time you're changing your attitude and you're reforming your whole perspective on life, and so are the Seahawks. Their mentality has changed and they're gearing up to go for something huge, right? Which you were also doing. So it's kind of funny to see how this story kind of coincides.
Yeah,
and
I think it's a little coincidental, but
it's also
I see what you did there.
It's pretty egocentric. But it's fine. And so,
hey man, I'll take it. I guess. Yeah, go ahead. Hey,
no,
congratulations. I see what you did. Hey, draw it up.
So, around the same time, you are still a huge Seahawks fan, right?
Of course.
And so you're on Twitter all the time. And I'm just going to lead you a little bit here because I know the story. But you ended up seeing a video, right, that ultimately inspired you down the line, right? So can you explain what happened?
Yeah, so like you said, the story back home in Seattle, Pete Carroll was hired. He was this, basically an NFL loser. He had an epically successful college coaching career, as we all know. But no one thought he was going to succeed in Seattle. And we saw some traces of brilliance because now 2010 was when Marshawn Lynch had the crazy run, when we beat the Saints. There was glimpses of brilliance there, right? And so there's a story developing with Marshawn Lynch, almost like a redemption tale, right? Mm-hmm. Pete Carroll's now winning in Seattle,
on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And
almost the whole team. Right?
Yeah. There's the story of Marshawn Lynch. You've got the Bruce Irvin story at this point. Russell Wilson was the 3rd-round draft pick that no one thought would amount to anything. So there's this story brewing back home here, right? Mm-hmm. But it hadn't come to fruition, of course, but it was happening. Mm-hmm. And like you said, one day I'm sitting in my living room. I was taking summer school courses, and a lot of that's just hanging out doing nothing. But I'm watching, I'm on Facebook, and I see a 49ers friend of mine.
It's so funny that it's a 49ers.
Yeah, probably the most ironic thing about Rain City Redemption was it was inspired by a 49ers documentary, which is kind of funny. But anyways, I'm on Facebook, and a friend of mine posts something on Facebook and goes, I'm in tears. So naturally, I'm like, well, I'm going to click on that, right? And I hate the 49ers, right? I mean, I don't think I even have to say that on the show. I think that goes without saying. But I clicked on it anyways, and it was a 30-minute video done by a film student down in San Francisco about the Alex Smith story. And Alex Smith's story at that point was he was the 1st overall pick, right? 49ers. Things do not go well for Alex Smith. And Mike Singletary, there's not a good marriage there in San Francisco. They're struggling. People are burning Alex Smith jerseys. It's getting ugly. But then Jim Harbaugh goes into San Francisco and starts to turn things around. And then Alex Smith has this total just resurgent season. In 2011, they beat the Saints in the playoffs. It's super dramatic. That's kind of what the documentary covered. And I kind of was thinking to myself afterwards, I put the computer down, I'm thinking, man, I wonder if someone should do that for the Seahawks, because we have a pretty cool story going on too. But it's not going to be me. But it'd be cool if someone did that for us, right? So that was kind of a thought. It ended there.
And this was right after the season, right? Well, not maybe right after.
It was the summer after. Yeah, it was the summer after it was the 2012 playoffs, but the 2011 season. So it was a couple months after what had happened in San Francisco.
So just to put things in perspective, so the year is 2012.
Yes.
It's the summer.
Yeah.
You see this video.
Yeah.
That you're not thinking, oh, let me go make a video just like that. You just kind of think in the back of your head, that'd be cool if somebody started doing something like that for the Seahawks because there's this tail building. And then,
well, how the hell am I going to do it? I don't know how to edit video.
Right.
So
of course.
Someone should do that.
Right. But it won't be me.
Like not going to be. Someone should do that though.
So, while this is happening, like we brought up the best DJ name ever, DJ Food Stamps, AKA Professor Andre, comes to you ultimately get the job at the Cinema Studies Lab, right? Yep. And this is the fall afterwards, just to kind of set things up for people.
Yeah.
This is the fall afterwards that you see the video and you get the job there. You're still not thinking, hey, let me make a Seahawks video. You're just in the lab doing your job. So was there Was there a moment, or what happened to ultimately leading you to wanting to do the series?
Well, I was kind of not chomping at the bit, but I was at this point kind of interested in doing it. But it seemed way too daunting of a task to learn how to edit video, compile all this footage. I was still thinking, not going to be me. But after week 6 of 2012, Seahawks fans will recognize it well. It was the day that we beat the Patriots. Richard Sherman, it's the You Mad Bro game. Every Seahawks fan knows that game, right? And it was such an exciting victory. It was like a Sunday afternoon. And I guess in that moment, it kind of clicked. I remember I was watching the game with my brother, and he goes, yeah, someone's definitely got to get going on this story, because if no one does, like, if we don't do it, then it might not ever get done. And that's another point that I should bring up.
Yeah, I remember. I remember when, even because we were still hanging out and stuff back then. Kat, not all the time because you live in a different state, obviously, but we were still talking. I remember you saying back then, I wish somebody could compile this footage in some way, because once things go on the internet, they are up there forever, but sometimes they're really hard to find. Mm-hmm. Right. And they get buried in the millions of YouTube videos about the Seahawks. And it's so hard to find old footage and relive those old days. Right. And we used to talk about that I wish there was a way that we could go back and watch it.
Right. Because those moments ultimately fade on the internet.
Right.
They still exist, but they become ultimately more difficult to find. And look, as an example, Super Bowl 40, when we were sophomores in high school, when the Seahawks went to the Super Bowl against the Steelers, hate that game forever. But there were some really, really awesome moments in Seahawks history in 2005 and 2006. Going to the first Super Bowl, beating the Panthers in the playoffs and the Redskins in the playoffs. Those were crazy, crazy moments. And as a Seahawks fan, you want to relive those moments. And if you don't have the DVD or the newspaper that you bought the next day,
right,
it's going to get buried by future content. And ultimately, it'll just get hidden. And so that was a paranoia of mine at the time when Russell Wilson started to win games and the Seahawks were kind of on the rise. I said, man, these moments are really, really cool. It would be a shame if they just disappear like all the other moments before them. So that was kind of the moment that it clicked. That night, it was week 6 in 2012. And I said, okay, I told myself, all right, well, I have a shift tonight at 8 o'clock. I'm just going to go into the library, and how hard could it be to edit video? How hard could it possibly be to string clips together and just start doing this, right? We've put people on the moon and back. Yeah. I think I can figure out a video editing program. It cannot be that difficult. So that's what I did. I went to my shift that night. When everybody left, I locked the door behind me. It was midnight, and I started just basically I figured I had to start with a blueprint, right, of how I was going to do the whole series. And so I figured I'd have to start with the beginning when Pete Carroll came from USC, gets hired as the Seahawks head coach. I wanted to document that first because that was the beginning of the series, right?
Right. And I'd just like to bring up, you didn't actually like that Pete Carroll came to the Seahawks originally, did you?
Oh, I did not.
Yeah.
I did not. Well, you got to remember, man, as a diehard Oregon fan, I love rooting against USC.
Right.
And so naturally, I couldn't stand Pete Carroll. Dude, it's funny because Marshawn Lynch said that same thing in his first interview in Seattle. He goes, I couldn't stand Pete Carroll. Yeah. He used to play for Cal, right? Yeah. So, yeah, but, of course that changes. Yeah, you win a couple games, you're like, all right, I mean, this guy's pretty cool. And it's not anything personal with him. It's just he's the coach of another team that used to just, run rampant in the Pac-10 at the time. And used to kill Oregon. So you hate the guy that's always beating you, right?
Right, of course. And it wasn't a personal vendetta. It was just that he was always winning.
Yeah, so of course. Who actually hates the Yankees? Do you just hate the Yankees because you genuinely dislike them, or is it because they're always winning?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you sit down at the computer. Like you said, you have to come up with a blueprint of how this whole thing is going to go. Mm-hmm. So you figure it has to start there. Where does it go on the computer? Because I think it's really good. The reason when we were talking about bringing up the story, right, I thought it was really great because so many people, we were both there, and so many people at some point, the difference between you being successful at something and you not being successful at something is just going and doing it, making the first steps and going and showing up and figuring it out. And so if you can take anything away, just do that, right? I said that kind of earlier, but part of this podcast and the way that it's been going is we both want to kind of inspire people a little bit and show that you don't have to be an NFL player to be successful in the sports world, right? There's a lot of different little lanes that you can get in this world, especially with the internet now. There's so many different avenues you can take, and we're taking them, right? And we're trying.
Yeah.
And so, and anybody can do it, man. Just put your mind to it and just start, right?
Yeah, that was, we'll obviously get through the story of how this whole thing started, but that was basically the initial inspiration. How difficult can this be? If no one does, if I'm not going to do this, I really doubt someone else will. So I might as well just take the leap. Worst case scenario, I suck at it and I stop, whatever, right? But yeah, I went in that night and like I said, I started compiling all this footage. I, over the course of the next few weeks, I put together this, I think it was like a 10 to 15 minute video. And by the way, I was like obsessed with the whole thing. I mean, when I say I worked around the clock on this, when I first started on it, it was around the clock. I would go into my shift at the library. The students would leave. I'd lock the door. I'd be there till about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and have 11 a.m. classes. I mean, I was literally losing sleep over this project because I loved it, dude. It was so cool. For me, with someone with a background in audio production and graphic design, multimedia in general, this was a way I could blend all things. And that's how I viewed it. And it was like this crazy new world that I was opening up, and I just loved learning it, man. And so the first ever episode of Rain City Redemption. And by the way, I came up with the name it took all about 5 minutes to come up with the name. I was like,
well, where did you find inspiration? Did you just think, not to take anything away, but that's kind of a usual Seattle name, right? A lot of the people around here use Rain, but they usually go the other way where they do the REIGN Rain, and you didn't do that, which I admire because I think that's kind of corny.
I think it is corny, but I used to intern for a booking and promotions company called Rain City with Melly Darby. She's a local legend out here. But
yeah, shout out to her.
Yeah, for real. But she had a company, Rain City, and I always loved that name. And when I was making that video series, I really didn't. The whole purpose of the video series was to kind of show, to be, the ending of Super Bowl 40, how they lost and how they came back to prominence under Pete Carroll. That was kind of the whole idea. I didn't know where it was going to end. I didn't know if it was going to end with a Super Bowl episode. It was kind of just like, let's start here and then just show the story of how things got better, right? And so in that, I thought, okay, there's a redemption story and Shawshank Redemption. So I basically just combined Rain City and Shawshank Redemption, and then that's how the name came up. And it was like all 5 minutes to think of it. And then, like I said, I think the first episode was about 10 minutes long. It was probably horrible, but I thought it was pretty cool, I guess. And it got deleted, actually. The whole project deleted itself on Final Cut.
How long had you been working on? How many hours had you put into the one that got deleted?
Probably about 15 to 16 hours, because you got to remember there's like the learning curve also. 10-minute episode now could be done in an hour, but at the time I'm still learning how to move things around. And
well, you're playing catch up with learning all the programs too, right?
So
God, that's horrible, man. That honestly is horrible. I'm sure everybody can sympathize because we've all deleted homework or typed out some long project and it gets deleted. Oh, that's horrible. So what was your mindset after that? Were you super bummed, or what did you do?
I actually took it as an opportunity to just wipe the slate clean and come at it with a different approach. Instead of having a 10-minute video, I think I decided I'd just uncover a few more stones in the story and make it 35 minutes. And the first official Rain City episode 1 was 35 minutes. And it was trash too, but it was better than the first one.
Did you kind of look at it as a rough draft maybe? Because I'm sure just like anything, you were learning the programs, you're doing anything, and you kind of finish it and then you look at it again and you're like, oh, I can make that better now.
Yeah, I could come back at this with a different approach and just make it better. It was an opportunity to just make it better. It's like, and Derek knows what I'm talking about. It's like when you make a recording and it's fine, but you don't love it, and it just accidentally gets deleted. It's like, all right, well, now I have an opportunity to do this again and make it even better. There's like, it's everything. Life in general is a work in progress, right? And you're always trying to, get better than you were the last time you did something. So that's how I viewed it. I didn't freak out. I knew that wasn't going to be the end of my video editing career. And so, fuck it. I'm going to go ahead and just try again.
And that's a good attitude to have, man. That's the attitude you need to have, right? Because things are going to go wrong. So you need to have some fortitude.
And it was probably my fault, by the way. I mean, I'm sure it was my fault. I didn't know how to operate those programs. I'm sure I deleted the whole thing on accident. But hey, it was a blessing in disguise.
So after you finish it, how long did it take you to finish the first episode?
The second try at the first episode probably took about a month and a half, maybe 2 months.
So much longer than the first 10-minute episode took to make.
Yeah.
And did you upload it immediately, or what did you do with it?
Oh hell no, man! I was so So there was a lot at play at the time, but I was so self-conscious of the whole thing that I was horrified. I was scared as hell to put it up on the internet because you got to remember, I was hanging out with not professional at the time, but aspiring video editors. A lot of my friends were doing this as a career, and they were great at it, and I didn't want to be like, look at the stupid shit that Will's making over there. Like, he's going up to the Cinema Studies lab and, wasting a chair and putting some stupid sports thing together. And it was kind of, I don't know, I was just really self-conscious about the whole thing. Not only that, at that time, I was working with a bunch of artists in Eugene, and that was, that documentary was taking time away with them. So I figured if I put this on the internet and it sucks, they're going to be like, yeah, man, like, you kind of neglected us. You weren't giving us a lot of production and
for that bullshit,
for this stupid little thing that you did. So there was a lot of that, and I don't know. I mean, you know how YouTube is. There was the element of, man, if I put this up, it's going to start all kinds of there's going to be a bunch of horrible comments. I don't feel like getting attacked on the internet because this is a poor production and I'm a self-taught video editor. So yeah, I was scared to do it.
So how long did you sit on it before you ultimately put it up?
Like 6 months, I think.
Wow. So what made you decide after 6 months? What made you decide to put it up?
Is my girlfriend at the time. She had this revolutionary idea. She goes, just put it up, and if it sucks, then just take it down. I was like, oh, well, I guess that makes sense. Yeah. I didn't think of that. Yeah. So yeah. And the other thing I should also mention too is the other inspiration to put it up was that I was showing other friends of mine that were Seahawks fans, and they would tear up when they were watching it, which I thought was kind of weird because you got to remember I'd been making music up to this point, and usually when you make an album, you spend all this time making something, and the homies will be like, yeah, it's really cool, man, it's cool, man, like, you hear the new Brick Crypto, and then like they'll change it up, right? Like, people are moving past your stuff, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that might listen to this as an artist and that they can relate to that. So
nobody was tearing up at the albums though.
No one was tearing up with the albums we were making. No, definitely not. And but with this, friends of mine were like, I hate that this is the only thing I don't like about this is there isn't an episode 2. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Giving me the whole, like, the runaround.
Still not giving yourself the credit you deserve.
Still, that voice in the back of my head's like, no, it can't be this good. They're just gassing you up. But at the same time, I'm like, they are crying, though. So that's kind of
tough to fake.
That's weird. I was like, maybe he's had a bad day at school or something. Like, I'm thinking of all the reasons why I might, like,
maybe his mom got into a car accident. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what's going on in Alfie's life, dude.
Yeah. So you did put it up, and what was the response? Well, where did you put it up?
Okay, so the first place that I shared it was obviously on YouTube. It went up onto YouTube, but then I figured I'd share it with the Seahawks community that was Field Goals. Field Goals was, they've been producing great content for a long time. At the time, Danny Kelly was the lead editor over there. Loved his work, still do. He's over at the Ringer now. But yeah, Danny's an awesome dude. Shout out to him. There was a little fan post section on the Field Goals website. Mm-hmm. And anyone could post this stuff. Obviously, you have the content that editors are doing, but then as for an opportunity to fans to share their own stuff, they can make a little fan post and say, "Oh, I might as well throw it up there." I don't think Reddit was around that at that time, but I didn't think to even. I just figured I'd only put it on Field Goals because that's where I was spending the most time. Put it up there, and then just kind of close my computer. It was like the only thing I can really compare this to is when you spend a shitload of money on the internet on something that you kind of feel weird about, and then you kind of just like, all right, I'm closing the computer. That's done. Yeah. I don't even want to. Yeah, just forget about it. That's that was my approach. I put it up on YouTube, shared it on Field Goals, closed the computer, went to sleep.
So you wake up the next morning. What happened? What was the response like? Did it blow up immediately, or was it a slow burn? Or
I don't know if I want to say it blew up. I mean, in comparison to other things that go viral, but it had a really good response right away. There were already a couple thousand views on the YouTube channel, and the comments were like, "I'm crying. I can't believe this is great. This is so well done." And I'm like, "Holy shit!" Like, these are people outside of my friend group that are liking this. And so I was kind of freaking out. And I was getting all kinds of messages. And it was crazy. In fact, the first day it was up and live, I received a message from this guy named Paul Miller, who I've become great friends with Paul over the years. And I still work with him. But he reached out to me. He was a composer in Seattle. And he said, "Hey, man, I love the song selections that you chose for this. I make music like that. Let's work together. So this was crazy for me, right? This is the first time that I had gone beyond just the people that I was friends with. You know, usually when you share an album, you post it on Facebook, you know, it gets like the 10 likes or whatever, and then it kind of dies there.
Yeah.
It kind of like lives and dies on Facebook and your immediate circle. But these were people that I didn't know and people that not even in America. I was getting stuff from Germany and Spain, and I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy.
Right. And it's crazy that there's Seahawks fans out there
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah, and yeah, it was, dude, the whole thing was pretty surreal. And I remember after that, I went back to Field Goals to see what the response there was, and it was on the front page. It was on the top of the page.
That's so crazy.
Which to me was like a huge deal, man, because I was such a fan of everything that Field Goals was doing, and I was on there pretty much every day. And so to see something I made be on the front page was crazy for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Congratulations. I've told you this like more than a few times, but congratulations again, man, because it's so crazy to see something like that be successful, especially when you produce content by yourself. It's so hard to do. I did think it was kind of funny. I just thought of this, that all those years of making music and finally a composer reaches out because you made a video about the Seahawks.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
So where did it go from there? Did you immediately think like, I got to make an episode 2? Or
yeah, of course. Because I had to. Look, man, you got to go with what works. Mm-hmm. And up until this point, I hadn't made anything that was, I don't want to say special, but just, again, I had never affected people with my creativity up to this point. And so now I saw something that was working. I'm like, all right, well, I got to start an episode 2 tonight. That's what I did.
And how long was episode 2 in relation? Do you think that it improved a lot from episode 1, or how do you view it?
Not really, just because the window was so small. But I made episodes. I think what it was for a lot of people was they just wanted more of the same. I mean, they liked what was already there. Mm-hmm. It was, looking back, horrible from a video editing perspective. But it wasn't so much about the video editing and the production as much as it was just there and available for people to watch.
Right. It was more about putting the story out there so that it wouldn't be buried in the mountain of content, like we said earlier.
And again, this was something that was going to be on YouTube forever. Well, I thought at the time. Eventually, I was taken off of YouTube, which, God, I hate that. But yeah, it was just something that was there. People that could go back and rewatch Richard Sherman getting drafted. They could go back and rewatch Brandon Browner, you know, leading the team in interceptions in 2011. Like, these were things that we now had that lived in a place. You didn't have to stream multiple YouTube videos together to get the story. You had it right here. It's a 40-minute episode where you can watch the whole season. And people just ate it up, man. People totally ate it up. And it was just a surreal experience to be doing. It was just kind of living in the moment. And yeah, my thought was, well, now I got to make, I mean, remember, this is now 2013, so there's a new season coming up, but I got to catch up. I got to make things present now. So that was the plan.
And so now you're done with college, right? As 2013 or 14, what year did you graduate?
It was 13. So yeah, I did episode 2 when I was still in Eugene. And then, episode 3 was when I was up here in Seattle.
Okay. And back. That's when, because I stayed up here. So when you came back, that's when we kind of reconnected when you moved back to Seattle. I actually helped you move into that place. The first day you got back, I was just in Capitol Hill and I was, you need help moving?
Yeah. I'll never forget that. You helped me move in. You're sitting there on one of those lawn, I don't know if I had a lawn chair in the living room, but there was a lawn chair in the living room. And you were sitting there having a drink and you're like, I don't think you understand. I'll be here every day.
Yeah. And I was.
And I was like, no, he was like, no, I'm serious. I will be here every single day. Because I was in the heart of Capitol Hill at the time when we were younger. It was like the place to live, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, anyway. So when you get back, I remember those days fondly because I would walk into that apartment and just hear you screaming at a computer screen. You would be so mad.
Oh, yeah.
Because you were producing these. Now your skills have progressed, right? You know a lot more about video editing. You're maybe 2 years in, somewhere around there, right?
Yeah, about
maybe
2 years.
3.
Yeah.
And your skills have progressed, like I just said. So now the computer can't really keep up with you because it's an older laptop, right?
Yeah, and you got to also remember I was making the Super Bowl episode because by this time the Seahawks had won the Super Bowl, and I had to make a Super Bowl episode, and I was gonna go crazy with it. I was like, this isn't gonna be a 40-minute episode. Let's make a 2-hour movie.
Oh, for people who don't know, it was bad. And none of you know because how could you know? But I would walk into his house and he would just be yelling. His girlfriend would be on the couch reading or something, and Will would be screaming profanity because Every time he would try to do something, you would get that horrible rainbow wheel on the Mac. Anytime you would try, God forbid, you'd move the mouse in any direction.
And that was every edit. People should know. Okay, so everyone hates the thinking rainbow on a Mac, right? Every edit I do, it was that for 5 minutes. Nudge a little video clip over to the right, just a couple frames. Thinking rainbow, 5 minutes.
And it became impossible to do that video.
Well, not to mention, I had a lot of pressure coming on from people, which was also pretty cool in a way. I mean, it like sucks to have people like, where the hell is the next episode? It kind of sucks, but also it's kind of cool in a way that there's a demand for your work, right? It's kind of like what am I trying to say?
Double-edged sword.
Kind of, yeah. Because it's like these people are really like impatient and like I really gotta get on my shit and finish this, but also you're like this is kind of cool because like people are anticipating this, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that 2-hour Super Bowl episode totally consumed my life, man. I mean, I remember, dude, you guys would be going out all the time and like weeknights, weekends. You guys would be hitting up and like, yeah, we're gonna be in your neighborhood, come down to Chow Chow or whatever. Like, no, I'm in all weekend. I got to finish the sequence. Because I figured, like, if I was going to get distracted and go out with you guys, and it has nothing to do with you guys, of course. It was just, like, there was all these people waiting for this video to come out. So I figured if I would get distracted, it would never get done. And look, man, I'll tell you, to make a 2-hour video, compiling years of footage, it takes a long time. Mm-hmm. As I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah. I saw it. I don't have to imagine. I saw how long it took for you to get everything together, and it was a tough process to watch you go through because you had built yourself up to this, like you said, where now there's expectations, and now the equipment that you have isn't performing, and so you ended up kind of figuring a way around that, right?
Well, yeah, and a lot of people won't realize is pretty much every original episode was made on a 13-inch MacBook Pro.
Which is crazy. An old one.
An older one, a 2011 MacBook Pro. And dude, yeah, I mean, you can imagine. I mean, like, I remember when I started. So yeah, what I ended up doing was, I guess I should just retrace and just like take a couple steps back. There became a point where I couldn't make videos on this computer anymore. It was getting old. It couldn't keep up with the updated versions of Adobe Premiere. And so now there's a problem, right? I'm a broke college grad. I couldn't afford a computer. What am I going to do?
Right. You had lawn chairs in your living room. Things weren't great.
Yeah, well, they weren't. They weren't. Humble beginnings, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a crossroads where I could no longer keep up with the demand. The computer couldn't keep up with me. And so something had to be done. I had to update my basically my equipment. And I hated to do it. And look, up to this point, I kind of prided myself on keeping the whole thing free. It was something that I'd never wanted to charge for. I couldn't. It's illegal. It's third-party content, right? I mean, but outside of that, I was like, look, this is made for fans to enjoy. It should be free for everybody. I'm not trying to make money off this. This is never my intention of doing this, right? It was just so we could relive moments. But I had people on my Facebook page and YouTube, offering me money, and I denied them for years. So to add some context, I had the idea to crowdfund for a new computer, but I hated the idea because I did not like the idea of all of a sudden not even charging so much, but taking people's money, right? Sure. And so I was really, really conflicted with the whole idea, but it was the only way that it made sense. It was the only way I was going to get a computer capable of editing high definition videos. And so the more I thought about it, I go, all right, this might make sense. It's not going to be that much. It's going to be about $3,000. We're not talking crazy money here. I'm not asking for, a golden toilet, dude. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I put it up in exchange for the equipment. I promised that I would remaster the old episodes too, and all the future episodes would be in high definition, which I thought was a pretty fair trade-off, and it worked. People were very, very quick to come with their support, and until to this day, I couldn't be more appreciative to everyone that donated. I mean, seriously, I don't know where I would be without that computer. That computer changed my career.
Yeah. No, you're right, man. And we've talked about that before for sure. I remember he's kind of underselling how much he hated the idea. I know he just said that, but he hated it. We would talk about it a lot because I was trying to do something kind of the same, not the same, but I was also trying to crowdfund something at the time, and we would have these conversations about how much we both hated. It's so hard to ask for money. Maybe some people don't mind as much, but I hate it. I couldn't stand it, and you couldn't either. So
yeah, well, I just didn't want it to come across like, hey man, I've worked really hard for you guys the last couple of years, so where's my money? Now it's payday. I was horrified it would be seen that way, and really it was a necessity. If you want, it would basically turn into, look, you don't have to help me, right? Mm-hmm. But I do need help to fund equipment. I don't make enough money to buy it on my own. So for this series to continue, I need your guys' support.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what it was.
And it paid off. And like you said, dude, this has paid off. You see so many good, if anything else, look at it like this. All those people that donated to that crowd fund basically launched a young man's career.
Totally.
If nothing else, that computer totally changed your ability to do not only work for Rain City, but in other aspects of your life, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And you're I mean, I won't say specific like audio, video, but you're a content producer, right? And so you need a machine that's able to do that. And like you said, you're a broke college kid, you got student loans. It's hard to buy a Mac computer that's expensive.
Yeah, very few recent college graduates don't have $3,500 just laying around to buy a new iMac. They just don't. And so I'm so thankful and fortunate to have the people that supported me. And like to this day, shout out to all of them. Seriously.
Yeah, man. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And so what doors, let's talk about what doors that opened for you. What did you end up doing with the computer?
Oh, dude, what haven't I done with that computer? Now, after Rain City, after they won the Super Bowl, it was time to start looking forward into other things that I could pursue. I've got a couple
story, actually, sorry, but the story kind of also ends, right? Because not to say the band broke up, but the Seahawks had a long run.
Yeah.
As far as Super Bowl contenders and being in the spotlight, longer than we probably should have. So that story's over.
Yeah, right? In many ways, the redemption was over. They got back to the Super Bowl. They won. And I did make an episode after that Super Bowl episode called The Rain City Miracle, which kind of chronicled that crazy season they had in 2014 to go back to the Super Bowl. But we know how that one ended.
Right.
So ever since, and people ask me all the time, where's the new Rain City episode? Well, where's the story? What story do we have right now? I mean, I'm not trying to shit on the Seahawks here, and we've obviously been great. I don't want to sound unappreciative, but there's not really any true story right now, So it was time to start thinking about other endeavors, things I could do. I'm currently producing a handful of documentaries. I'm actually working on one that maybe people won't like to hear this, but I'm working on an Oregon documentary right now about their story from 2016 to 2020. They went 4-8. Justin Herbert, the true freshman, came in. They ended up winning the Rose Bowl his senior year. It's a phenomenal story. I'm working on that. And I've also been working with college athletes around the country the last year for their highlight tapes and just content for them. So it wasn't just Rain City Redemption. It's opened up so many more doors.
Yeah.
As a professional video editor.
And for those of you wondering right now who are listening to this, maybe is all this hard work going to pay off? Is this going to get me somewhere? Am I just kind of beating a dead horse with what I'm doing? Because I've tried so many times to do the same thing and I haven't been granted access. Like nobody's let me in the door, right? Just know that, just keep trying, because that's essentially what happened to you, right? And I would just like you to tell about like what you're doing most recently and how that happened.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned like, trying to constantly open up the same door. And what Nick is referring to is I've applied to work for the Seattle Seahawks in their media department about 8 times. The guy that was the media head was an Oregon alum. I have this video series. I felt like I was a shoo-in. I had great references, people that used to play for the team. And still not even so much as an interview. So again, it was time to start thinking about, when is the door going to open for me, if ever? And you start to get discouraged, but ultimately, man, and the only thing I will say to that is you do it because you like it. Whether you're going to work for, the Seattle Seahawks or the Cleveland Cavaliers, whatever it is you want to do, right? It shouldn't be about the end goal. You need to enjoy the process. And I know that sounds so cliche to say, but you do ultimately just have to enjoy this and love it for what it is. Because if you're always focused on the money or what job you might eventually have, you're in it for the wrong reasons, man. And I'm gonna produce content no matter who I'm working for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anyways, what you were alluding to, I'm working for Pete Carroll's media company called Amplified Voices, which has been a dream come true in so many ways. I mean, I've never worked for such a just encouraging, supportive, positive group. Seriously, it's been so cool to work for them. But I should probably tell you the story how that whole thing came about.
Yes, absolutely. I would love if you tell the story.
Because that almost didn't even happen. So right now I'm working for a real estate company, and I'm on my Rain City Series email, and I'm kind of clearing my notifications. Most of the time, it's people that are emailing me through my website, or it's just YouTube notifications that I'm constantly clearing, right? So that sort of thing. And I come across an email last October, it might have been November, either way, it was a couple months ago. And it's just all it says in the subject line, and I'm going to talk to Audrey about this because this is hilarious. And eventually I'm going to talk to her about it. But the subject line in the email says, in all lowercase letters, I want to talk to you. So I'm thinking, okay, this is someone that is a big fan of my series, and I've got stuff like that before. You get all kinds of people on the internet.
Yes, of course.
Appreciate them all the same, but yeah, you get all walks of life, and so
especially all lower caps.
Yeah, all lower caps, and this is not email etiquette, right? So I click on this, and it's just an email that says, "Hey, are you William Cornell? Are you the creator of the Rain City series? I'd like to talk to you about a project." So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, this is just another person, and I scroll down, and at the bottom it's her name and Seahawks.com, PeteCarroll.com. I'm like, okay, there's no way, right? Because I've already kind of made my judgments based on the subject line, so I'm thinking there's no way, and plus that's just too good to be true, right?
Right. This is not an L. It's capital I's that look like someone's trying to scam you or something.
Yeah, and so, but of course I have to look her up, so I go onto LinkedIn. And yeah, she works for Pete Carroll. So now I'm kind of freaking out. And my immediate next thought is, okay, when was that email sent? Because
I haven't checked this.
I haven't checked this. Yeah. So now my heart is sinking into my stomach. I'm like, oh my God, when was the email sent? Because for all I know, it could have been 2 years ago. Yeah. I don't know. Who's to say?
Right.
I go back and it was sent 3 months prior in August. And I'm like, wow, you want to talk about a door not opening? Apparently, I can't even open it.
Yeah, I can't even find the door.
Yeah, I can't even find the door. So now I'm freaking out. I hit up, I think, Derek and you. Wow, I've screwed up this time.
Yeah, I remember that.
Really, really bad. I got, someone that works for Pete reached out to me, and I fucked that up somehow. And yeah, I'm pissed at myself. I ended up texting a good buddy of mine, Mike. He runs the Beast Pod, Tasteful Profanity blog. Shout out to that dude. But I'm freaking. He's kind of in these situations, he's my go-to guy because he's always level-headed. He's always kind of even keeled in these moments, right? And he tells me, he goes, "Yeah, you definitely suck, but you got to email her back." So emailed her back, and 4 days go by, nothing. I'm like, yep, that's what I thought. Yep, not going to get an email back. They've probably found some other great candidate, good for that guy, sorry for me. And no, on the fourth day, I get an email back. She says, I'm so glad you reached back out to us. Let's set up a time to talk. So I'm like, oh my God, this is huge, right? And I ended up getting on the phone with her, and it's really a cool story how the whole thing happened. So I'm on the phone with her, and she's telling me a little bit about herself and how she ended up working for Pete, and she didn't know anything about Pete Carroll. And she came across my series, and that kind of educated her on her employer, essentially. And that was what kind of taught her more about Pete. And so she, we're talking. She goes, is this something that might, we're going to be doing all these things for, a company's called Amplify Voices. We're going to be doing all these things for the community and, trying to generate positive change in the world, that sort of thing. It wasn't really football related. But I'm thinking, I thought this whole time I'd be working in a sports field, right? I'd be working multimedia for a sports team. But I'm thinking to myself right then and there, I'm like, this is even better. This is way more important than working for the stupid Seahawks. This is actually something that matters, right? Mm-hmm. And so she goes, at the end of the conversation, she goes, is this something that might interest you? And I'm like, are you kidding? What do you mean? I've worked my ass off for 8 years on Rain City Redemption to eventually get myself in a position to have this conversation. Of course I'm interested. And that was the long and short of it. I've been working with them it's been about 3 months now. It's been a really awesome experience, and it's even better because I got Derek on board now.
Yeah.
Derek's been a part of the team now for the last month or so.
Just about going on a month.
Yeah. They were looking for a photographer. I'm like, hey, I know just the guy. So, hey, man, sometimes when you get wins, you got to take your people with you. So
Absolutely.
the whole thing has just been awesome. And Derek can even talk about it a little bit. It's unlike any company I've ever worked for. These people truly are, they're genuine people. All that cliche stuff. You know, when you get a corporate job and they're like, let's talk about how much we appreciate each other and let's have this, like, you know, these moments where you introduce yourself. All that stuff is so corporate cliche, just like, you know, shoot myself in the head stuff. But with this team, it's actually genuine. These people do care. You do go around. It's all based on love, man. It's just, I have to pinch myself because sometimes I think it's too good to be true that I'm working with these people. Seriously, every day. And Derek will, you know, say the same thing, I'm sure.
And that's awesome, man. And I'm happy for both of you. And it's so awesome that you guys found something where you can work for a company. Nothing's better than loving the place that you work because, as the old silly saying goes, it never feels like work, right?
Yeah.
If you love what you're doing, it's never going to feel like work.
Yeah.
I'm happy for both of you guys.
Derek and I were just saying that we found a job that doesn't feel like one.
Right.
I mean, I've been working every day. Well, not every day. I've been working every year of my life since I was 12. And it's always been a job. You go in, you get your money, you clock in, you clock out, and that's all that it really is. And I know it's like for some people it's a shitty attitude, but that's how it's felt for me my entire career. You know, I don't care about some of these jobs I've had. They're just a means to pay the bills.
Right.
But now, you know, working with AV, it's just, like we said, it's a job where it doesn't really even feel like we should even be getting paid because it's so cool and just fun.
Yeah, and
Straight
like
up.
you said, it's funny that it ended up being something not in the sports world. And,
Yeah.
and not necessarily that specifically wasn't the inspiration, but that's kind of the whole theme of the podcast, I guess, if you want to say that because we've all been sports fan. Derek played college football. We have both played sports in high school and still continue to play, you know, recreationally. But we've been in the sports where we couldn't hack it professionally by any means. But,
Absolutely.
You know, but we all love sports and we all wanted to stay connected to that in some way in our adult lives and continue that passion. And we started, especially with Will, who kind of led the charge with this. There's so, like I said at the beginning, so many avenues that you can take that are within the sports community that aren't necessarily have to do with playing, right?
Yeah.
And so it's funny that full circle, Rain City is ultimately what brought you the dream job of what you were trying to do when you started this whole thing, right? Is you wanted to get involved into a sports type position. You thought it would be something, but as life goes, it always turns out to be something else. Right?
Yeah, it's not always a door you think you're going to open. Mm-hmm. It might be something else. I've interviewed a handful of athletes that have told me the same thing. You know, you think you're going to end up here. You think you're going to be a first-round draft pick. You think you're going to go to your favorite childhood team, play for the Dallas Cowboys or something. But another door opens up, and it's a blessing in disguise. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just, I always say, I mean, to end up in a situation, I mean, for me, it was a little different, but it was just a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of nights choosing not to go out and drink with my buddies, staying and work instead. It's a lot of hard work, sleepless nights, and a little bit of luck. I mean, I got lucky to be where I am, and I'm never not going to be appreciative and grateful for that. I have to remind myself every day. It's like, you know, you don't just get into this position by chance, you know? I mean,
right.
But at the same time, a little luck is involved, of course.
Yeah, it takes both, right? Like, I don't know. I'm sure there's some stupid saying where it's 100% hard work and 50% luck, right?
Yeah.
Where you have to work hard and you have to show up, but it takes a little bit of extra sometimes. And regardless, though, no one deserves it more. Seriously, my guy, you know, congrats. I say it all the time, but congratulations. Like, I'm proud of you. It's great to see one of your own make it in some capacity in what they're doing. So we're all proud of you here. I love having you guys here. It's crazy that we even get to do this because I don't know if we mentioned it on this. I think we've recorded this fucking episode probably 4 times, and like it's been a whole process. If you made it this far into the podcast, I'll tell you, it's been such a fucking process trying to set up everything in this room, and it looks like a spider nest of wires in here. But
you'd never know from the composition.
No, you wouldn't.
Right.
But
it's behind the curtain.
Yeah. And for everybody listening, thank you seriously, because we've been wanting to do something like this for a long time. And we finally are at the point in our lives where we have the opportunity to actually put something like this together and maybe create a fan base where we can just interact with the community and just do something that we love, because that's what we're all moving towards at this point in our lives. And we have the means to do it. So why not? So let this be motivation to anybody out there watching this. If you want to do it, just go for it, man.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. And we failed a bunch of times.
Yeah.
All those times that he was screaming at the computer screen. I was in the back trying to, dude, what did we try to do? Make t-shirts.
We were doing everything, man.
And you pick it. We try to do it. So don't let failure be your dream killer. Let it be a motivator.
Yeah.
Right?
I was just telling friends of mine over the weekend, because I was telling them the story. I hadn't seen them in a couple months, so I had to fill them in on the whole thing. And they were like, this is just so crazy, man. Like, you know, what's it feel like? And I'd say like this, man. And I really want to stay away from sounding too cliche, but it really is true that if you really just put the effort forth and just try to do something, and of course not everyone is going to be capable of doing anything, right? Like I'm not going to be able to play in the NBA. I'm just not, right? There's certain limitations that are realistic at some point, but you have also no idea how one decision in your life to just decide to start editing videos will change your life. I mean, this series has changed my life. We wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't have the availability to do this, and I wouldn't be in this. We wouldn't be working in the jobs that we're currently working without that decision to just try it one night.
Right.
And so you never know if it's not just video editing. Of course, it's anything.
Yeah.
Give it a shot, man.
And
that's all it is.
And like I said earlier, treat every relationship like it's the most important relationship you've ever made, because you never know when it's going to come back around and help you or hurt you. So just make sure you do the work, show up, be nice to people. All these things are the remedy for success. And not like, you know, this is kind of weird advice coming from someone who none of you know. So thank you guys for listening. We're going to get out of here. It's kind of late. We've had a long day. But hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all the stuff you see people say on YouTube, all that. Thank you, Derek, for coming down here. We love you, my guy. Our favorite producer in the world. Thanks, bro. Appreciate you.
Of course.
We out.